More now on the challenges facing the efforts to rebuild Gaza. We're joined by Graciana del Castillo. She's a senior fellow at the City University of New York. Welcome to Biz Asia America.
Thank you, Philip.
There's a number of estimates out there to say that the timeline to rebuild Gaza could take up to 15 years and untold billions of dollars. Let's start with the timeline. What's that predicated upon?
Well, I think obviously to reconstruct Gaza, they will need imports, and during the blockade, it's not going to be possible. Now, how much it will cost, it's very hard to estimate. We will have to see what the damage is just before the reconstruction, and also the way it is done. I think the international community has failed to reconstruct, to help reconstruct countries. We just saw what happened in Afghanistan and in Iraq and many other countries. So we have to rethink how we help war-torn countries to reconstruct after the conflict is over.
Let me ask, there are countries right now providing assistance to Gaza and the citizens there that are being affected by this conflict. Who are the countries that are most involved right now, and who perhaps could be involved in the future?
Well, there are many countries involved. There are many donor countries in the Arab world, in Europe, the US, Canada, several European countries. But particularly the UN UNRWA is very much involved in not only with the refugees, but particularly providing services. But the issue is that at the present time, 80% of the people are receiving humanitarian assistance. And that's a problem, because that brings people to a minimum levels of consumption, but there is no investment. I mean, so what reconstruction means is to reactivate the economy in an inclusive way that affects the lives of the majority of the population, but it has to be in a sustainable way, and that requires investment. You know, it's very easy for war-torn countries to grow. The issue is whether it is inclusive, everybody benefiting from it, and whether it's sustainable. Most reconstruction and high growth, for instance, in Afghanistan and in other countries, in Liberia, it's not sustainable.
But Graciana, that brings up another really good point that I want to talk about, and this is blockade. I mean, obviously the Israelis put the blockade in order for not to have weapons and things come into the Gaza area, because they're accusing those folks of using those to build weapons and tunnels and so on. But because of the blockade, I don't see how the people in Gaza can rebuild at all. I simply can't see how they could possibly rebuild.
Absolutely. I mean, it's impossible to rebuild if you cannot import. I mean, they don't have the resources there to rebuild. So they will have to somehow loosen the blockade before there is any rebuilding of the Gaza Strip. Now, very interesting that in 2003, I participated in a conference on security and economics in Herzliya University, that both Prime Minister Sharon and Netanyahu, when he was Minister of Finance, and I remember very distinctly, because it was music to my ears, that he said that there would be no peace in Israel until they reconstruct the Palestinian territories. Unfortunately, things have moved in the wrong direction.
Yeah. And to be fair, we're specifically talking about Hamas, and there has been criticism, even among that area in the Middle East, that a lot of countries there could do more, not only to support the Gaza area, but also to perhaps give a check perhaps to Hamas, so they wouldn't have so much power to do what they're doing, to get the retaliation from Israel, to have this conflict. I mean, there could have been more done, could there have not?
Yeah, I'm sure they could. The issue is, and it's not only in Gaza, is that whenever you strangle an economy and you deprive people of their livelihoods, obviously you are creating radicalism. And I think Hamas, the radicals in Hamas, would have much less support from the population if the blockade didn't exist and if people could have a decent living. So a livelihood. So I think, it's a chicken and egg problem. I don't think you can decrease the power of the radicals within Hamas with the situation that you have now.
I have time for one more question. I want to ask you this. If I was Israel, I'd probably respond with this. We would not let the Gaza Strip develop economically in any way, shape, or form so long as Hamas is in control of that area. Is that a fair statement?
It might be fair, but is it politically reasonable to do that? And what I think it's happening now is that they are, in a way, empowering Hamas because, the more they strangle the population, the more the population will unite in a nationalistic way. So I think they have to start to think ways, win-win situations in which they can start working together to improve the well-being of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Graciana del Castillo, thank you very much, Senior Fellow at City University in New York. Thank you for joining us